at the very base of this pyramid, you have to feed yourself. And you have to have your needs for water, and your needs for food, and your needs for shelter as you move up this, and then your needs for sort of like companionship, and ultimately a need to feel a sense of belonging, a need to feel loved as you begin to move up this pyramid, until you get to the very top. And at the very top of this pyramid, there's just a tiny little space up there. And this tiny little space at the top of the pyramid is what we call purpose, where you're living your life as if why you're here is really clear to you. A sense of purpose is not that I'm doing what I was told I was supposed to do, that was programmed into me by somebody in the sky before I showed up here, but that I feel as if why I'm here is being actualized. And when people ask me about how do I get to that place of purpose in my life, I always remind them that your life is like what Joel Goldsmith called it, a parenthesis in eternity. So who you are, Carl Jung referred over and over again to the part of us that is eternal, the infinite part of us. He said the telling question of a person's life is their relationship to the infinite. And until you have that relationship with the infinite, you will not know anything about purpose. So that you almost have to learn how to step outside of yourself and begin to witness yourself from the perspective of who you are as not being this thing that you're observing. You go to the observer, and then you even get to watch the observer. And that's when it starts to get a little bit complicated. But as the observer, or as the witness to the observer, you're sort of watching and noticing. But the sense of purpose comes from being that witness rather than what you are witnessing. And when you get to that place in your life, you begin to realize that who you are in this physical world, this name that you've been given and this body that you are occupying, is nothing more than a parenthesis in something called eternity. It opens parentheses at the moment of your conception. It closes parentheses at the moment of your death. But when you come into this parentheses, when you show up here, you show up with nothing, with no thing. And you go from nowhere, N-O-W-H-E-R-E, nowhere. And in one instant, conception, you're in now here, N-O-W-H-E-R-E. It's all the same. It's just a little question of spacing. Nowhere, now here. So now you're in now here. Hopefully, all of you listening are in now here. There may be some of you listening that are not now here. But while you're in now here, you have some kind of an awareness that you're going nowhere. You're going back to nowhere. So it's nowhere, open parentheses, now here, back to nowhere. It's all one. But there's something different about now here than nowhere. At least we think there is, but we don't have any real confirmation about that unless you're Brian Weiss. Or you know about past lives or future lives and so on. Now, one of the things that one of the great teachers in my life, Carlos Castaneda, whom I've referred to on many occasions, one of the things that he says is that the problem with humanity living at ordinary levels of awareness is that we are all beings who are going to die, but we act as if we're not. So that we don't really ever come in contact with our immortality or our infinity at all, because we are acting as if this body is all that there is and it's going to live forever. When in fact, there's an awareness in there that we're all going nowhere. And one of the things a story that I told, that I'm going to read for you, that I put in a book called You'll See It When You Believe It, which was a turning point in my life, that book. It was the book that I wrote that made the shift for me complete, from talking about psychology to moving into something called spirituality and higher consciousness. That was the shifting point in my life back in the 80s. You'll see it when you believe it. And I tell this story, and I want to read it to you. And it was a story that I heard told by a great teacher in India. A traveler from India went to Africa to acquire some local products and some animals. And while he was in the jungle, he saw thousands of these beautiful, multicolored talking parrots. And he decided to capture a talking parrot and take it back home and make it his pet. So now he's back home and he's got this talking parrot from Africa. At home, he kept his parrot in a cage, and he fed him wonderful seeds and honey. He played music for his pet, and generally he treated him quite well. When it was time for the man to return to Africa 2 years later, he asked his parrot if there was any message he could deliver to the parrot's friends back in the jungle. Well, the parrot told his master to say that he was really very happy in his cage, and that he was enjoying each and every day, and to convey his love to his friends back in Africa. Well, the traveler went back to Africa. He delivered the message to all of the parrots in the jungle, and just as he finished his story, a parrot, with tears welling up in his eyes, fell over dead. The man was alarmed and decided that the parrot must have been very close to the parrot in the cage, and that was the reason for his sadness and his demise as well. So when the traveler returned to India, he told his pet what had happened. As he finished his story, his pet parrot, his eyes became all welled up with tears, and he keeled over and dropped dead in his cage. The man was astounded, but he figured that his pet had died from the despair of hearing of the death of his close friend back in the jungle. Well, the trader opened up the cage and tossed the dead bird outside onto the trash heap, and immediately his pet parrot flew up to a branch on the tree outside. The trader said to him, "So you're not dead after all. You tricked me. Why did you do that?" Oh, the parrot answered, "Because that bird back in Africa sent me a very important message." Well, what was the message? He told me that if you want to escape from your cage, you must die while you're alive. And that's the story I heard from a great teacher of mine. And that's one of the things that I'd like to share with you here in this principle called Don't Die with Your Music Still in You. You have to learn to die while you're still alive. And when you do that, what you do is you remove yourself from the identification of who you are with this open parentheses, with now here. And you begin to see yourself as eternal, as infinite. And you have now let go of your attachments to all of this worldly stuff. And then you have this awareness, this realization, this aha. And the awareness is that I came in with nothing, no thing, and I'm going to return with no thing. I can't take one thing with me. And if I come into the world with nothing, and I leave this world with nothing, what can I do with my life? And the answer is, you can't have anything. You can't accumulate anything. You can't own anything. You don't get that privilege. It's an illusion that you might live under, but it will always bring you a sense of suffering. The only thing you can do with your life is give it away. And that's when you'll find purpose in your life. When you find a way to give away your life. Back to Francesco, St. Francis. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in giving that we receive. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily making contributions. It doesn't mean giving